Okay, now that we have a few people here, and it is coming in on 10:05, today we are going to talk about the benefits of staging and updates. And if we are all part of Compass, then we understand the nuances of that through Compass Concierge and why it's so impactful. But I'm just going to go over some of the basics as to what really creates and enhances a space, maybe with little to a little budget, or maybe there is you can really maximize and utilize that Compass Concierge, or somebody has the funds, because inevitably that this is going to maximize the property value. But sometimes this is pretty tricky, and it's not easy to navigate because we want to be mindful about who lives there and how we're approaching it. But ultimately, we know that these are tips and tricks that will definitely get them to the other side of closing a transaction faster and for more money. So very important stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, share screen. Here we go. Share. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me on the call, my name is Erica Cavelli. I run a team of agents in Boston. I'm actually a realtor and a designer, and I don't just use the title lightly. I actually went to school for interior design. I worked in an architectural firm, and I turned designer I turned realtor designer about 17 years ago. So I've been selling real estate for the past 17 years. And I've been using this hand in glove approach. And why this sort of presentation resonates with me is because it's like a lot of, who we are and how we represent ourselves. It's also part of our unique value proposition. In that, we use these skill sets to, again, go ahead and make those improvements, and then coach people on why it's necessary to do these things. So how are we maximizing market appeal? And our agenda is that we're going to quick introduction, preparing your home for the market, which is the large segment of this. I think that it's some of the preparation steps. I think that the saying is, excuse my language, but piss poor planning ends up in poor performance. So preparing your home and helping your client to understand why that's so important for their debut to the market is imperative as a part of their success and yours. Staging, benefits of renovation, maximizing your return, and we'll just sort of conclude there. So the power of staging and design in real estate, how we're transforming spaces, enhancing value, and strategies for standout listings. And of course, this just goes beyond, the preparation and the renovations and the staging, as a last effort in part of creating this marketable product, you have to have that A team of professionals with you. And how are you going to photograph this to make sure that the rest of the world sees this in as best light as you are, right? So that professional photography at the very least, and potentially, videography, depending upon the product. So preparing your home for the market. Let's see here. Okay, so getting your home ready, it is 4 major components. Decluttering is huge, spatial planning, cleaning and repair, and curb appeal. And so we'll go over those in more in depth. So decluttering, unlocking your home's true potential through strategic organization. And so the phrase that I like to use is, and I heard this a really long time ago, and it just always stuck with me, but clutter eats equity. So to the left, we have this property in Roxbury that was actually, it's not necessarily market I function in, but it was a referral from Realm. And I said, okay, well, let me help this woman out. And her clients turned out to be a really good opportunity for both of us. And ultimately, it was very complicated. It was an estate sale. One of their sisters had died, which was pretty sad, but we still needed to make sure that we were maximizing this for the sisters and the mom. And so, delicately, we approach this. And these are 80s cabinets, but you look to the left and we're seeing a lot of fluff and stuff. I mean, to the point where there's stickers all over these cabinets. You have microwaves and you have dish towels and you have just so on and so forth. And there are agents out there in the world that would go ahead and market this product, right? And so I'm not saying anybody on this call would do that, but the reality is that it's a quick lift that you could really see beyond these. This was removing the stickers, using the old 80s cabinets. We just put some granite countertops on because it made sense. And then, we changed out the stove so that we had stainless steel to match the stainless steel dishwasher that already existed, and the refrigerator as well. And we cleaned it up and we staged it, and it's an incredible difference. But going back to clutter eats equity, a simple selective simplification, retain only regularly used items. And even at that, right? Like if you have your Keurig on the countertop, unless it's like a really nice Nespresso or something like that, like I tend to want them to take those things off the market, off the countertops, and specifically the kitchen countertops, because what we're talking about is making sure, especially in smaller spaces, if you're in New York and whatnot, all of those big clunky appliances take up tons of space on your countertops, and it really just detracts the viewer from what they need to see, which is space and clarity. That actually really, in a number of levels helps, with the resignation of the photo and what their attraction is, because ultimately what you're trying to do is evoke emotion and create demand. So counter clarity, minimize functional clutter, maximize space and maximize value, efficient utilization, as a value driver, and less is more, enhancing through minimalism. And the internet is a very strong tool in and of itself, and things like social networks like Instagram and Pinterest create this ideology of what people assume that they're going to be living like. And the reality is that once you get living, it's probably unlikely. There's a few people that can maintain that appearance, but we need to be showroom ready, and the client needs to understand that, and they have to be willing to bite on that notion as well. So you need to help them get here. And through imagery like this, they can understand, well, hey, listen, if this was Tinder, would you rather date the girl on the left or the girl on the right? And, nothing against the girl on the left. She's probably lovely and has a great personality, but this one seems has a better presentation. And that's, unfortunately, that's the sort of the world that we live in, is that we're judging, through these images, and specifically for real estate. So, okay, so next slide. All right, spatial planning, crafting a functional and aesthetic living environments. So as an interior designer, obviously this means a lot to me. And, here's an example of how a room was utilized, or there was this particular space had multiple living rooms that were sort of back to back. And so we wanted to make sure that we were telling the consumer really how to use this space. And redundant living rooms that were back to back didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So what made most sense was to flip-flop the spaces and actually at least have something between them. So we instead took this formal living room and we made it into its original, or we brought it back to life to its original dining room status. And so it was light, it was bright, we lifted it up, there was a bunch of things, we added a lighting fixture, and you can see this is exactly that same corner, but what a difference, that domain furniture, that heavy 90s decor really like the heaviness that brings and the weight to the photo versus the light and airiness of what we're selling here, and how much lighter and brighter it is, and how much more utilitarian the space is. So optimizing the space, select and simplify furniture. Oftentimes people have too much furniture in their space, right? So, how do we tactfully approach that? Well, we are selling space. Again, when we're in smaller spaces and we're selling it for pretty high square footage, we have to be able to show that space. So if there's too much furniture in there, we need to edit that down, especially if we're not doing ultimately, which we always love to do, is actually staging it with furniture that syncs to the market. But if we're working with what we already have in the space, we need to sort of work around that for budgetary reasons. So we want to definitely be editing the space down. And then strategic rearrangement to maximize the room's potential. So if they have a TV crammed in the corner, maybe it needs to lay on the flat wall. Maybe they just didn't see that because they're not designers and they didn't have designers in the past. But you have to make sure that you're coaching them that right way. And sure, it may be uncomfortable for them for a little bit, and that's certainly things that we tackle. But ultimately, it's for the greater good, and that sometimes you have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, right? So they're not going to be living in their space like they're living here forever. They want to move, so they need to make changes. Curated aesthetics, minimizing decor, and to maximize impact. And this is a clear display of how we're doing that here. Domain furniture for anybody on this call that even remembers that, it just had this very, again, it had a very big presence, we'll say, but too dark and too heavy for what we're selling today. And so even when we see some of these trends come back, we definitely want to still be cognizant of, the images that we're creating through that. Okay, so cleaning and repair, spotless presentation, showcasing a well-maintained home. There's nothing more like appealing than coming into somebody's house that smells good. It feels clean. I went to a house recently that was being sold around the corner from my house, and they must have had dogs. And there are really two deal killers when I think it's actually three. Wallpaper was a big one. Carpet and smells were like top tier of like deal killers in past data findings, right? And so making sure that the home smells fresh and clean is huge. And not even just smells, but like feels it, because it just makes it more attractive. So engage professional cleaners, ensure deep comprehensive cleaning before the listing, and then refresh the bathroom essentials. We always just, we expect just fresh, clean white towels like you were at a hotel. Eliminate any toilet rugs. Those are things of the past, right? So when we're working with the older clients, we're just going to pull those up. We don't need anything holding any additional smells. And then again, neutralize those home odors and address hidden scents for a welcoming atmosphere. So, like candles smell like vanilla or cookies. Those are always a good asset to have in your toolbox for your open houses. You might bring that along with you. Somebody might have cooked with garlic the night before, and that's not always appealing to everyone. So we need to sort of not only neutralize the space, but we need to neutralize all of the senses, and smell is one of the big ones. Okay, so what are the benefits of staging? So, I mean, there's a ton of benefits of staging, right? Again, we're creating that marketable product to the masses, and people like pretty things. That's why marketing works, right? So, not only are we saying the right things, but we're so visually impacted that it is such a critical element. And I believe that the data is that 90% of staged homes sell faster than those that are not. Or something like that. I might have said that wrong, but either way, the point is that staging a house does two things for you. It helps the home sell faster and for more money, 100%. And it's more impactful to actually have it physically staged than it is to have it visually staged, as in like, when we have the words, when you have like an AI representation of this digital furniture that's staged in the room. And then when you go to the house and you realize that this furniture never existed there, and the scale of the furniture that was inputted into the room doesn't actually match the scale of the room. It's actually very disappointing. And if we are actually looking to evoke that emotion, it's going to cost, maybe you've done it to get them through the door, but then did you do it enough that they wanted to stay and that they wanted to hang out and then they wanted to write an offer? And that's what staging really does. Okay. So it helps to continue the experience so that they innately love that product because of the way that they can visualize themselves living there. So an enhanced visual appeal, highlighting space and functionality, better online photos, a faster sale appeal to a broad audience, positive first impressions because you only have one chance to make a first impression, and it's easier for the buyers to visualize. Now, buyers can't see beyond their own nose. So that's why putting these things in order, and um, and taking care of them in advance before you're marketing the product means so much to the end result of the sale. I'll also say this, there are a lot of stagers out there and a lot of photographers, but you have to qualify these individuals. Not everybody that can buy furniture at Home Goods is a stager. Not everybody who claims themselves as a designer is a designer. So you really want to, just like if you were going to hire anybody, you want to be looking at their background. You want to be looking for their product and what they're putting out and how they work. And you want to get some reviews from other agents prior to you utilizing their services. Because just like no two agents are alike, no two stagers are alike. And also their pricing is kind of all over the place as well. So you want to get somebody that's going to treat you fairly, they're going to do a good job, and they're going to be working with you. We just came out of a market where like it's been crazy busy and stagers cleaned up. I think that the reality is that they need to bend with us as we go through more challenging times. And so instead of that typical 45-day contract, you might be looking at a stager and asking them for 60-day at the bare minimum. And you're not asking to be charged more money for that either, because you're not going to be making any more money. And the reality is that it could be taking you longer to sell these properties. So make sure that you're having those negotiation chats with your stagers and maybe even your photographers up front. First of all, it's honing your own negotiation skills. But secondly, never fear to negotiate and never negotiate out of fear. So I think that it's very important that we have these conversations because ultimately we're working towards the same goal. They love their job, we love our job, and we want to both keep doing it successfully. So it's a team effort. So the benefits of renovation, and this slide is going to be a lot, but let's just go over the top. And these are just kind of redundant, right? So when we're talking about renovations, we breach this very lightly with our clients, depending upon who it is, right? Like if you're working with a developer, well, I mean, hey, we're doing the whole kit and caboodle here, and we're making sure that we are looking at what is trending slightly, but not too egregious that it's going to be jarring to the buyers. So we want to kind of float that avant-garde line. But when we're working with our typical buyer and seller, we have to kind of ease into this. So I went to an appointment the other day, and again, it was another estate sale. And don't ask me, I'm apparently I got a thing for estate sales, which is great. They're actually very lovely clients. You want to help them in a time of need, and you want to be able to coach them, but you don't want to push them too far. So there's this balancing act. Maybe they want to do nothing, and you can absolutely sell the house doing nothing. And what you apply there are those 4 steps that we talked about earlier. And at the very least, what you need to do is make sure that it's clean, okay? Clean and decluttered and clear and has some curb appeal. And that in and of itself does enough. But if you can add that next layer and you can pull in Compass Concierge, then what we're really looking at there is the floor, okay? Because they oftentimes, as the saying goes, where do you find money? And it's on the floor. So if you can lift carpets and expose hardwood floors, if you can tackle the wall colors because they're from 2000, early 2000s, and they're jewel tones and every room is painted a different color, but you can whitewash that. And you can look at those lighting fixtures objectively and say, this looks like it's from 1982. And if that's the one thing that's standing out in this room, we should really change it for $100 and $50 for the electrician to come out and make a quick switch. Or maybe it's even your handyman. Those are so impactful. Oftentimes we're looking at backsplash. We're also looking at countertops, and we're looking at hardware. And so again, those small things. Vanities in the bathroom, if we have 50s tile, the 5x5 is great, or the 4x4 tile, it's coming back. You could always use porcelain patch or some kind of a company in that way to come in and paint those pink bathrooms out white, or maybe you want to leave it and keep that retro feel, depending upon, the aesthetic that you're creating. But generally creating this neutralized palette does so much for increased marketability, higher perceived value, faster sale in general, your competitive advantage, positive inspection outcomes. It attracts a wider audience, gives you negotiation leverage, and an enhanced buyer satisfaction, which is ultimately what, the real goal is there. So, oops. Okay, my arrow keeps going the other wrong way. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in conclusion, what are we looking? So keys to success, revamping the home with smart renovations, setting the stage to show off its full potential, and using a rock solid marketing plan, because the end and be all is you only have one chance to make a first impression, and that is your most important job. We are marketing professionals first and foremost. That's well before we get into negotiations. If you can't market a property, it's going to be a really hard time getting to the fun part, which is negotiating. And in my case, I actually love the preparation of preparing those homes for the market. And if anybody ever had any questions, or they have properties that maybe they took some pictures of and they just need to know, how to move forward with it, or they need a consultation because maybe that's hard for you to see, then my phone is always on. We do accept consultations from around the globe to go ahead and give those highlighted points, where then we can create a list that says, hey, these are our tops. And what we always come across or to our clients is that these are never going to be demands. They're always suggestions and never demands. And so, and at the same time, be clear that you still only have that one chance to make a first impression. So I hope that you found this to be informative and right before the Christmas holiday. And I appreciate anybody who is here. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to jump in. I think we have a few minutes here. Any questions? Hudson Valley, New York. We only have, it just could be us, really. I think it's.
Hi, Erica. Thank you. That was very informative.
Oh, good. Did you feel like you got something out of it at least?
Yeah, so I'm not a home stager, but I do tell my clients and help them when it comes to like prepping their home right before getting it on the market. And I do give them like a decluttering list. And I do see the difference that it makes when you do stage the property and prep it and declutter it, and it does help a lot to get the home get sold quicker.
Oh, absolutely. I think that our greatest strength as agents is to be able to provide good direction. And when you have the confidence to be able to portray that to your client, it's an enormous benefit to both, again, you and the client. So when you're first like new to the scene, it's hard to tell people what to do and how to do it. But the more direct you can be, I feel like the better the results. And I feel like that, there's that same principle applied to a lot of pieces of your life make sense, right? But this one in particular, if this is our job, these people are looking for our guidance. And it's so important for us to give them that, because we could be leaving money on the table for them if we were too shy to be able to tell them, what needed to happen. And so even just for, sending the list is a first step, but then going through and making sure that they've actually done the things before you photograph. And then, taking that secondary eye over it before it is even photographed is so important, I find too. But people do take great direction, by the way. Like, they want to be led because they want to be successful, and that's why they're hiring us. So great job and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'll,
we'll have
I'll,
a
I'll send you some photos so I can show you what I do with my client.
Oh, I would love that. So you can actually follow us on Instagram. It's Covelli_company, Covelle.
Okay.
And follow me there. I'll follow you back, and hopefully you have some good stuff there. Before and afters are great marketing material that you can share like with your audience too, because it helps show your skill set. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind if you don't already do that.
Yes, and I hope to be a home stager like you one day.
Ah, well, I'm actually
Officially.
not a home stager. I do hire out stagers, by the
Okay.
way, because staging is a whole nother job. I'm an interior designer, so like I help with the finished choices, and
Okay.
also I sell the property afterwards. But being a stager is a whole other job, and there are teams that have staging as like a component of their business, but you
Yes.
have to have the storage, you have to have the manpower, you have to have the transportation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of work. So I'm happy to hire stagers out all the time, and make sure that you're not picking up the bill on your stager either. That's not your responsibility. It's always going to be the responsibility of your seller, because I know a lot of agents kind of will tap into that, but that's not your job. So you're getting paid to do what you do, which is market the home and negotiate the property. And other than that, sometimes there are expenses, and we're happy to spend money, but on things that matter to us and the ultimate outcome. And it does matter, but it is their responsibility. So just know that too.
Yeah, I have, after my last property that I staged, I realized I was like, I'm doing this for free. I'm investing money in like in home decor and cleaning supplies to prep their home. And I was like, I should be charging them, but this is a passion of mine, so I didn't see it that way. But business
Yeah.
is
And
business.
that is a slippery slope, because I think good real estate agents are giving people, and we want to just do right.
Give
And we want to
value.
make sure that we're presenting the best product. And don't get me wrong, because when back in the back in the day when I was a young agent, I wanted to do everything. So I would do everything. And then you realize that you can't grow if you're doing everything. So you have to have your clients assume responsibility. They're in this with you. It's a team effort. You shouldn't be paying for cleaning or staging or any of that, not unless you're competing against a really high end, like this listing that you're dying to have and somebody else offered it. And maybe at that, but even then, don't short sell yourself. And also, don't you're already going to be spending money. You spend money on great photography, right? And you're spending your time, and then your marketing dollars and wherever else that's going. So, those are the responsibilities, and it's just upon the delivery of how you address that with your client. So here's my marching orders for you, dear, Mr. Seller, or Mrs. Seller. These are the things that we need to do. So I have a cleaning lady, or cleaning people. I have, cleaning company, I should say. I have also, junk removal people, and I have, our stager, and I have all these resources for you. And then here's these people, and you can have them give them a call, or just directly connect them. Or the other thing I do is I create a budget sheet for anybody that we're doing this kind of work for, and we have that as a line item in there. And then basically, if they're okay with the ultimate outcome, then I have them sign that, knowing that they're okay with the subs that we're going to be supplying. And then as a secondary measure to that, by the way, I do actually have them sign a hold harmless agreement too, because you inevitably might come into a crazy person who, you were trying to do right by, and something might have happened with one of your handymen at the property. So, because accidents happen and you just don't want to be liable. So your hold harmless agreement is important. And also just like connecting those resources and knowing your resources, like having a bunch of them like off the top of your head is great. It's an invaluable additive to both, again, to both you and your seller. So anyways, I digress.
Yes, thank you.
Obviously.
That's actually a very good tip, and I'm gonna start doing that because
Good.
I honestly didn't think about that. So I thank you. I appreciate that tip.
Yeah, you gotta be making money. Okay. We don't be, we're spending, we do spend money to make money, but ultimately our goal is still to be making money and not stripping it all from your profit, because you work hard for what you do, and our job in and of itself is hard. So, to add on, you're now the cleaning lady and the stager, like that's not fair, because those are two different jobs and those people get paid separately. So,
Yes.
okay, listen, I hope you have a great day, and a Merry Christmas
Thank
and
you
Happy New
too.
Year. Feel free to connect anytime. I'm here in Boston, so we're like neighbors, and make sure that you
Yeah.
follow us on Instagram and I'll follow you back.
Yes, definitely. I'm gonna be in Salem on Sunday, so maybe
Oh,
I'll bump into you. Who knows if I have time.
oh, feel free to reach out. Maybe we can
Okay,
have
I
a drink.
definitely will. Thank you
Okay.
so much. All right, take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Happy holidays. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.